Hi class, Keegan Taylor and Wes Rindlisbacher here. We're excited to be with you to talk about the business culture in India as well as our proposed products. Let's get started off by looking at the hostility dimensions between India and the United States. As you can tell, in the 6 different dimensions, there's a wide gap between the two countries. When we compare the hostility model, we see that India is higher on the power distance scale. This means that they have a higher distance between managers and entry-level employees. This differs from the US because we see ourselves more as equals with our superiors. As far as individualism goes, the US is far higher on the scale than India, and almost any other nation for that matter. We put ourselves first, so it is important for us to recognize that part of our culture when dealing with a more collectivist India in our business. However, when we look at all of India's scores, they are above the world average, so it shouldn't be too much of a burden for them to adjust if needs be.
If we are going to be successful in introducing this new product in India, we must discuss how they negotiate there and how we can gain a better relationship with them. Negotiation in India can be fairly tricky. Growing up in America and watching my father negotiate business deals in his own business, it's interesting to me how quick he can close a deal. However, in India, it's usually not that way. It can actually be rather difficult to know what they really want. Some Indians prefer to have a strong positive relationship before closing on a deal, and others prefer the Westerner route and want to close the deal even though there hasn't been a relationship established. Even though these 2 different options exist when it comes to negotiating in India, it is a good idea that we strive to develop a relationship with them regardless. A good way to have Indians open up to establish a relationship with them is to talk about friends or family. The reason being is because most Indian businesses are family run. Because of this, they don't allow anything in, and especially if they don't trust you. This is why building relationships are so important. Just like anyone, Indians only want to do business with those whom they like and whom they trust. And we will only gain their trust from us being respectful to them. It's important that we do all we can to be respectful. Embarrassing someone can be very detrimental to businesses, relationships, and can also lose our trust that we've worked so hard to develop. Indians can tell whether or not we're being fake with them or if we're being real with them. If they can sense that we are being ingenuine, they will not want to do business with us. It is also important that we understand the age and rank of those who we're negotiating with. In their culture, the respect one deserves depends primarily on age, status, or rank. While negotiating in India, Indians oftentimes come off as wanting a win-lose type of deal, so it's important that we redirect them to mutual benefit. As long as they can feel that we are trying to be friendly and not be confrontational, they're more likely to come to consensus. It's also important that we do not try to hide any information from the other party. Openly discussing and sharing information with each other is also a way to gain trust, so that they know you are not attempting to deceive them. The negotiation process can be a tedious and prolonged process, and it may require you to make multiple trips to get what you're wanting. Because it is typical that there will be delays, it is vital that you don't lose your cool and that you contain your emotions. Be patient. If they see you are being pushy, they will come off and discontinue the negotiating process. Know your facts, share information, and be patient. When it comes to Indians negotiating, prices can vary by as much as 40% from the initial offer to final agreement, meaning Indians love to bargain and haggle prices. With that being said, it is important to take note of the different techniques and tactics that they use. For example, they will lie, bluff, and make false demands to try and make you feel that they're disinterested. However, that's not the case, and this should not be taken personally, but should be understood that it's simply a tactic that they use. If you do take it personally and backfire, that may damage the relationship that you've worked so hard to gain. They will also use a final offer technique and pressure you into making quick decisions, So we urge you to take that into consideration. We also caution you that you take quick decisions into consideration and that you notice when they are trying to bribe you or use any type of deceitful technique. However, there is a difference between gifts and bribery. If you choose to give a gift, they will look at it as a gift and not a bribery. There are 3 different types of communication styles that are prevalent in India that I'd like to discuss. The first being high context culture. India is a very high context culture. With that being said, it is difficult to get the full meaning of one's words without having any background information, so sometimes it can be a bit frustrating. Relationships take time to develop and rely mainly upon trust. Having your quote-unquote personal bubble is almost non-existent, as they like to get close and share the same space. Change also takes time and is a process that requires a lot of patience. With everything that I have described thus far that is prevalent in the Indian culture, it is the exact opposite in the United States. So it is imperative that we understand these things. With low context cultures such as the United States, they rely heavily on explicit communication rather than implicit. With relationships starting slowly and being developed with trust in high context cultures, low context relationships begin and end quickly. Individuals are proud and center their identity off of their accomplishments. Privacy and having your own space is also very important in low context cultures because India is a high context culture and almost a direct opposite of the United States. This being the case, we need to ensure that we take time to develop a relationship with them and not pressure them into things. So patience is key with this type of culture. Second is indirect and direct negative feedback. Direct negative feedback and indirect negative feedback are also communication styles that are prevalent in different countries around the world, but India leans more towards an indirect culture, and the United States is almost the direct opposite of that. Indirect negative feedback cultures give negative feedback in an indirect way as to force the recipient to read between the lines and have them fill in the blanks. They do this to come off soft and try not to be too harsh. There's usually a gray line that can cause confusion between the giver and the recipient, so this can also be frustrating sometimes. With direct negative feedback, it is often seen as rude or uncaring because they go straight to the point. Even though it comes off as rude, they are direct, so there are no misunderstandings with the recipient. So it is important to note that the indirect feedback culture is something that is prevalent in India, and they give negative feedback in an indirect way. The last is non-confrontational culture and confrontational cultures. India is a non-confrontational culture, whereas the U.S. are somewhat in between. For us Americans to come off in a positive way with the Indians, here are a few things that we can do. First, we cannot force them to speak and ask them for their decisions. Speak to them about general things at first and slowly build a relationship instead of forcing them. We also must encourage them to speak first and give them the time of day to do so. You can find ways to get them to speak first, such as brainstorming together on what the best option is for both parties. Being confrontational with the Indians will only hurt our chances of closing a deal with them. So adapt to their culture and be patient.
When we take a look at the Economic Freedom Index analysis, we see that India has a world rank of 130 with an overall score of 54.5. Some of the advantages that India has are that they are above average in almost all scores. This includes trade freedoms and small tax burdens. Some of their disadvantages is that they do have a low fiscal health, government integrity, and some financial restrictions. As we look at the currency in India, we can see that the rupee has drastically dropped in value in the last year. It has actually hit a record low. This could be due to the high oil prices, widening trade deficit, and higher capital outflows. Roughly 80% of all of its fuel that India uses comes from imported crude oil. As a result of the weakening of the Indian rupee, foreign direct investments into India have begun to die down compared to the FDI in the past. In the last 3 months, foreign portfolio investments stood at a fifth of the figure at the same time last year, and this data is from the National Securities Depository.
Sanitation and clean water are an ever-growing issue in India, with more than 21% of diseases that are linked to unsafe water and hygiene issues. The reason for these diseases and unsafe water is simple: the lack of hygiene and the way they defecate wherever they please. A product they need so that they can have clean water wherever they go is a straw that purifies instantly. There are more than 163 million Indians that lack access to safe water. The production of the straw water purifier will be backed and funded by charitable organizations such as Water.org, who have also already made a significant impact in providing clean water to the Indians. The purifier will be strong enough to purify even the most contaminated. In India, there are multiple kinds of water purifiers, but we haven't come across any that you can't take on the go that purify instantly. So with this being the case, we would sustain a competitive advantage that would not only be temporary, but would be an advantage for an extended period of time. However, there are a few competitors in the purifying industry that are well known in India, which could make it somewhat difficult for us to succeed. These companies are Kent and Blue Star. These brands have a reputation for good quality at an affordable price. Even though they are larger competitors, my product is in high demand due to its on-the-go concept, which will cause it to gain traction quickly. Because my product is an on-the-go concept, there will not be any potential cultural issues that could arise simply because it is a water purifier and nothing more. With this being the case, this purifier will change the way Indians gain access to clean water, saving millions and blessing lives.
The second product we have chosen to propose is an electric pressure cooker similar to an Instant Pot. We think this could be an excellent product to sell in India due to its multifunction features and ease of use. The first thing that came to mind when trying to come up with a product was a way to make cooking easier and quicker for the Indian people. India is known for its curries, rice, and meat. All three of these types of dishes can be cooked easily and in less time than normal in an electric pressure cooker. There are settings that allow it to be a slow cooker, kind of like a crock pot, a high pressure cooker, or a rice maker all in one. The pressure cooker setting can also do more than just canning like we sometimes associate with pressure cooking. It can cook meats and curries in less than half the time it would normally take. We checked different markets for pressure cookers and could not find any electric ones that were being sold online. Amazon India is by far the most popular online store. However, on it there were only traditional pressure cookers that let off steam and have to be manually operated. On Snapdeal.com, another popular Indian online store, there was the same dilemma. All of the pressure cookers were conventional, manual cookers, and almost all of them were the same brand, Prestige. It doesn't seem like there's much diversity in the market, and there's only one brand that is dominating what is in the market at the moment. The only issue that we could think of would be the price. Because electric appliances are a little more expensive and intricate to manufacture, the price might be a deterrent. However, there's a wide range of income levels in India, and through research, we could probably find a price point that would reach a larger demographic.